Let's start with an uncomfortable question. A very uncomfortable one. Have you ever felt like you talk too much, just to avoid facing the void?
Yes, that uncomfortable void. The one that creeps in when the words run out. The silence that gnaws at you from the inside. Because deep down you think if you don't respond, you lose. If you say nothing, they'll see you as weak. We've been taught to fear silence, as if it's the enemy, as if every pause is a threat that must be filled. But here's the truth. Silence is one of the most powerful tools almost no one dares to use. Silence is uncomfortable because it reveals. It strips away masks. It tears down facades. It exposes the real intentions behind the words. When you choose not to respond, when you pause instead of reacting, you're doing something brutally psychological. You force the other person to face their demons. You make them carry the weight of uncertainty, because silence is not the absence of a response. It is a response, a loud one that screams, without a single sound. Think about it. Most people are trained to live in noise, to argue, to defend, to attack, because they fear the silence. They fear losing control when the words stop flowing. But the one who masters silence masters the situation. This isn't about staying silent out of fear. This is silence born from strength, from strategy, from inner control that rattles them. One trying to provoke you. When someone manipulates, pushes your buttons, waits for your reaction like a predator stalking prey, and you don't move. You don't react. You sit in calm, composed silence. You shatter their plan. And their power? It collapses. Why? Because manipulators feed off your emotional reactions. Every time you respond without thinking, you give them fuel. You hand over your power with every instant reply. But here's the truly unsettling part. Silence doesn't just confuse. It exposes. It demands that the other person reveal more than they ever intended. When you choose silence, your adversary feels compelled to fill that void. To explain themselves, justify their actions, control the narrative, and in that scramble, to speak first, they expose their cracks, their insecurities, their inconsistencies. Pause for a moment. Think about the last time someone hit you with silence, the kind that made you uneasy. It wasn't the lack of sound that got to you. It was what your mind started to create in that space. Doubt, anxiety, a desperate need to interpret what wasn't said. That's the power of silence when used with intent. It becomes a mirror, and in that mirror people project their own fears. There's something almost hypnotic about watching someone squirm under the pressure of silence, like watching a mask crack, piece by piece, until nothing's left to hide. And you remain unmoved, still, solid as stone, the absolute master of the moment, because the true power of silence lies in this. It's not passivity, it's mastery. It's not weakness, it's authority. It's not emptiness, it's presence. A presence so intense, it fills the entire room. Without a single word, because the one who knows when to speak, and more importantly, when to stay silent, will always hold the upper hand. And there's something else. Something no one tells you. Silence is a refuge in a world addicted to noise, to constant stimulation, to instant reactions and endless debates. Silence is your sanctuary. That addiction to noise, it keeps you chained to the expectations of others, to their judgments, to their control. But the moment you embrace silence, truly embrace it, you become free. You break those invisible chains. And finally, you decide who you are. The next time someone tries to drag you into their battlefield, don't play their game. Stay still, stay silent. Watch them become impatient. Watch their voice rise. Watch them try, desperately, to crack your composure. And in that moment, you'll understand. True control was never in the words. It was always in the ability to resist the urge to use them. Yes, silence is uncomfortable, but not for you. It's uncomfortable for those who can't live without the echo of their own voice, for those who need to dominate the conversation, just to feel secure. But you don't need that, because you know the truth. Silence, when used wisely, isn't a lack. It's a weapon, invisible, but lethal. When you stay silent, you don't just avoid conflict. You plant something far more powerful. Doubt, and doubt is corrosive. It eats away at your opponent's certainty. While you remain still, they unravel, trying to decipher your silence, fearing what it might mean. But remember, silence only holds power when it's intentional. This is not about staying silent out of fear, or because you have nothing to say. It's about choosing silence, because you know that speaking in that moment would be surrendering the ground you've already conquered with calm. Society has trained you to speak, to explain yourself, to justify every feeling, every decision. But silence is rebellion, a brutal act of autonomy, a silent declaration that you will not bow to anyone's expectations. Never forget this. There is no greater display of strength than remaining silent when everyone expects you to speak. There is no greater expression of power than resisting the urge to respond when provoked. Silence is not emptiness. It is strategy. It is not weakness. It is absolute confidence. So, the next time the air tightens with tension, when all eyes are on you, waiting for a reaction, when their words try to drag you into chaos, choose silence. Not because you lack words, but because you have too much intelligence to waste them, while they burn themselves out trying to break. You grow stronger in the stillness of your mastery. This is how true leaders are made, not in noise, not in endless words, but in the pause, the measured stillness, the silence heavy with purpose, because the greatest strategists in history knew one truth: the one who masters silence, masters the rhythm of conflict. And deep down, everyone fears the one who doesn't need to speak to command respect, because that kind of presence, the one that projects unshakable security, needs no external validation. It's authority that radiates from within, and that is unstoppable. Silence confuses, it disarms, it exposes. It's the shadow that haunts your adversary, the veil that darkens their certainty, the pause that reveals their weakness. It's the art of speaking without uttering a single word. So the next time you feel the urge to respond, to explain yourself, to fill the void with unnecessary justifications, don't. Remember this: your silence is your strength, your armor, your most powerful strategy. And now, ask yourself, how many battles have you lost by speaking too soon? How many times have you handed your power to the enemy just because you couldn't endure the discomfort of silence? Too many, far too many. It's time to change that. From today, choose silence as your ally, not as a passive escape, but as a conscious act of strength. Watch how the world trembles in the face of your calm, how manipulators run out of ammunition when you give them nothing, how your adversaries crack trying to solve the enigma you represent. Because silence, when intentional, is impenetrable. It's your shield and your sword. It's the language of those who don't need to shout to be heard. Let them talk. Let them fill the void with their nervous chatter. You remain unshaken in your silence. And watch how the world reveals its cards, while you keep yours hidden. Because in the end, true power isn't in the words you speak. It's in the ones you choose not to. And I'll tell you straight, if you master silence, you master the game. But here's where I take you one step further, to the level most never even suspect. Silence doesn't just disarm. It doesn't just create discomfort. It doesn't just expose weaknesses. Silence can manipulate time. Yes, you heard me right. When used with precision, silence distorts the perception of time in the mind of the one facing you. To you, it's just a pause, a moment of calm. But to them, it becomes an eternity. Every second, without your response, stretches longer and longer. They fidget, they panic. They begin an internal interrogation. answering questions no one asked, giving answers they never wanted to face. When you stay silent, you turn time into a prison. A place with no clocks, no answers, no escape. They don't know if you're about to attack, to surrender, or simply walk away. And in that uncertainty, they unravel, they twist, they drown in their own thoughts. That is the dark magic of silence. It stretches their anxiety to the breaking point, and all the while, you sit still as stone, unbothered, unmoved, in total control. Watch any real interrogation. The expert agents don't rush to speak. They wait because they know the pause before the question is more devastating than the question itself. Silence before the accusation? It forces the suspect to fill in the blanks, to anticipate threats, to imagine worst-case scenarios, to consume themselves from the inside out. The silence becomes heavier than the blow, because sometimes it's the waiting that tortures more than the wound. And in the most aggressive negotiations, it's exactly the same, the one who masters. Silence plays with the adversary's psychological clock. While one rushes to close the deal, desperate to escape the awkward pause, the other waits, patient, like a predator, watching the prey corner itself, without ever moving a muscle, because when you control someone's perception of time, you force them to act from urgency, not clarity, from fear, not strategy. And if you think about it, in every important conversation you've ever had, it was the fear of silence that pushed you to speak too soon. You accepted terms you didn't want, said things you didn't mean, gave up ground that should have been yours, all because you couldn't sit with the stillness. And the worst part? You didn't even realize it. But now, imagine mastering this tool. Imagine being the one who controls the mental clock, who decides when time moves and when it stops. It's an invisible power, but a crushing one. While everyone races to speak first, you move at your own rhythm. No rush, no panic, just strategic stillness. And here's the most fascinating part. Silence doesn't just manipulate time. It multiplies the weight of your future words, because after prolonged silence, every word you say hits hard. Not from volume, but from tension. Your silence is the rope you stretch. And when you finally speak, even the slightest tug feels like an explosion. That's why those who master silence don't speak louder. They speak with precision. They know a single phrase, dropped into a void, echoes louder than a full speech spoken in haste. So remember this, a well-measured silence turns every word that follows into gold. It's not the amount of words that convinces. It's the quality of the pause that precedes them. And now we reach the deepest level of all. Silence doesn't just control others. It gives you power over yourself. Because this isn't just about manipulating your opponent. It's about disciplining your own impulse. Humans fear silence by nature. It feels unbearable, because it reflects our own anxiety back at us. It's a mirror, and most can't bear to look. But when you learn to inhabit silence, to be calm within the stillness, you become immune to external pressure, because the one who feels at home in silence automatically becomes the one who dictates the rules of the game. Next time you feel the urge to speak, to fill the gap, to escape the pause, stop. Ask yourself, am I speaking because I have something valuable to say, or just because I can't bear the silence? If it's the latter, stay quiet, resist. Live in that space, with the confidence of someone who doesn't need noise to assert their presence. Here's the brutal irony. In a world that never stops talking, the one who stays silent becomes visible. They don't stand out by shouting louder. They stand out by knowing when not to speak. It's such a powerful contrast that no one can ignore it. Silence becomes your spotlight. Effortless. Undeniable. A calm so intense, it cuts through the noise. And now let me take you one step deeper, to a place very few dare to go. Silence is also a refuge from yourself, because it doesn't just expose others. It exposes you. In silence, you confront your own insecurities, your doubts, your shadows. But in that brutal confrontation, true strength is born. You cannot master silence outwardly if you haven't first mastered it within. Those who fear external silence are often the ones who can't stand being alone with their own thoughts, so they fill every space with noise, just to avoid hearing themselves. But you will not be one of them. You will turn inner silence into your most impenetrable strength, and when you do, you'll reach a level of control that no surface-level persuasion can touch. There will be no adversary who can shake you, no provocation that can speed you up, no pressure that can force your hand. You will be the master of your time, the master of your words, and most importantly, the absolute master of your silence. And while others drown in a sea of fake urgencies and noise, you will move calmly, with the serenity of someone who knows that true influence isn't in how much noise you make, but in the depth of the silence you maintain. So next time the world shouts at you to respond, smile, inside, and remember, silence is not emptiness. It's an invisible battlefield, and if you know how to play in it, you will always hold the E. Wait, there's one more thing I need you to understand before this ends. Silence isn't just a tool for conflict. It's not just for power plays or strategic standoffs. Silence is a filter. It separates the authentic from the fake, the real from the performative, the grounded from the insecure. Because the one who can remain silent, truly silent, doesn't need to hide anything, but the one who squirms, who scrambles, who over-explains, they're telling you exactly who they are. Without even meaning to, silence is a mirror, a detector of truth. So pay attention, watch closely, see who grows nervous in the stillness, see who tries too hard to fill the space. They're revealing more than their words ever could, because in the end, the one who can live in silence owns the room. So here's something for you to take with you. If you really want to know the truth about someone, don't listen to their words. Watch how they handle silence. Don't analyze what they say. Just watch how they face the void you intentionally create. That moment, their reaction, will tell you more than any confession ever could. And this is where everything comes together. Silence is not just a tactic to win battles. It's the lens that shows you the entire map of the war. It's the lantern that reveals the shadows, where people's real intentions hide. The one who masters silence doesn't just survive confrontation. They transcend it. They rise above it. They see what others can't. So now I ask you, are you ready to inhabit that silence? Are you ready to discomfort, to expose, to become the kind of figure who, without uttering a single word, turns every conversation into a chessboard, where you move the pieces and they scramble to guess the rules? Because if your answer is yes, then what comes next is inevitable. Real influence, silent authority, presence that's felt before you speak and lingers long after you've. Here's the final paradox. Those who talk the most about power rarely possess it. Those who boast the loudest about control are usually the first to lose it, but you don't have to say it. You show it. In the pause, in the stillness, in the void that shakes everyone else, while you remain unmoved. So, when this video ends, ask yourself, am I reacting out of fear? Or am I choosing silence as the master of my own destiny? And if you've made it this far, I want to seal this silent pact between us. Go to the comments and write, I master silence. I master my world. No explanations, no fluff, just that. That's your mark. That's the signal that you're not part of the noise anymore. You're one of us, those who choose mental mastery over emotional chaos. And listen, if this journey into the darker corners of the human mind hit something inside you, and I know it did, subscribe. But not out of habit, not out of routine. Do it as a silent declaration that you choose depth over distraction, that you're done with surface-level thinking, that you're ready to go deeper where others are too afraid to look. And no, I won't wish you luck. Luck is for those who wait. You've already seen the truth. Power doesn't come by chance. It comes when you master silence, yours and everyone else's. So no, I don't wish you luck. I wish you silence. Fertile silence. Silence that discomforts, silence that exposes, silence that makes manipulators tremble. I wish you the kind of silence that turns your presence into a quiet threat, because from now on, you won't fear the void. See you in the next video. Or rather, we'll feel each other in the next silence.